That being said, we are doing summer scouting at the Draft Professor. I am joined today by Durst. We are going through some positions. And Durst, you decided to do some nickel corners. I love this because as I was going through the list, we didn't have any of them on our sheet. So all of these guys are new to the Draft Professor sheet. But who's the first nickel or slot corner you want to talk about?
So I'm not so sure this is going to be the best one, but I think a guy that it absolutely projects to the nickel slot role is Devonta Smith. Now I'll start off with saying that I think we're now past the point of the nickel slot corner being the NFL's third best corner. People or NFL teams are spending more and more resources on guys that they think are going to be able to project to the corner, and it's a different kind of skill set. Yeah, I'm going to have a couple of guys that just lack the length for the outside, maybe the height, the arm length, and the deep speed, but it's a different skill set. You have to be able to defend the two-way go without the benefit of a sideline. To me, when I look at potential slot corners or nickels, I want to be able to see. I'm a little bit more interested in the short area quickness and their ability to get out of their back pedal than I am their long speed. And you got to be able to defend the run. So when it comes to this, it's a lot easier to target a nickel back that's playing in a slot than to get an offensive guard pulling out on a cornerback that's way out by the sideline. So, you're much more likely to have to be productive in the running game as a slot defender. You're going to have to be able to fight through the trash at the line of scrimmage. You're going to have to be able to fight through a couple of not just blocks from wide receiver, not just blocks from offensive linemen, but some of the blocks from the wide receivers when you got these tight condensed formation and a couple of tight crossing routes and so forth. So again, the one I really feel very comfortable with is Devonta Smith. Now he was the starting slot corner. They often called it the star position when a couple years ago in Alabama, and now they've moved it to the husky position, I think is what they call it now after the change from the coaching staff. So Devonta Smith had now transferred over to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's defense looks stacked, especially in the defensive backfield. They've got some great outside corners. It looks like they probably needed a slot corner, and Devonta Smith looks like he's going to slide right into that role. Plus, it's really nice not to have another Alabama Devonta Smith. We can kind of wash our hands at that. There was a little confusion. You tried to look up like 40 times for Devonta Smith, Alabama, and you're getting the wrong guy over and over and over again. So maybe now I can, when I Google his name, I can find what I'm looking for. So I wrote down, has the footwork, hip fluidity, and quickness to defend the inside and outside releases. Smith has shown the versatility to line up and press man coverage against slot receivers, pattern matching, and will occasionally retreat into the deep zone. He is physical when dealing with screens, and he won't be a liability against the run. I have a couple of comps for him. Jordan Lewis, the former Michigan, Dallas Cowboy, nickelback, and then Elijah Molden, the former Washington, and I think he, Tennessee Titan guy. I think both of these guys have actually moved on to different teams, but those were the teams they were drafted by. So Devonta Smith is the guy that I'm really excited about. I think he's got a really good chance of being a top 100 pick if the NFL wants to continue to add to their ability to defend in this slot. Xavier Scott's a guy that caught my eye last year. He's a nickel / safety from Illinois. He made a lot of big plays last year. He's physical, and he's got a lot of click and close to him. So he can really, go from his back pedal to going forward to either attack a quick wide receiver bubble screen. And, he's got a couple of interceptions that really are on his highlight tape that look awesome. So Xavier Scott is a guy that I thought had the potential to declare last year. And I think very quickly I think he's one of the earlier ones that basically said, yeah, I'm going back to school. Another guy that I'm excited about is Zion Tracy from Penn State. He was Penn State's essentially fourth corner last year. So he played some of the nickel, he played some outside a corner, but it looks like he's going to project to the slot this year. Now, Penn State has a different defensive coordinator. It's I forget his first name, but Knowles from Ohio State has now switched over to Penn State. And I actually watched an analyst that says that he might end up getting the I just can't believe I can't. So the downs position. I can't think of his. I cannot believe I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. Now, where I got Caleb Downs. Okay, so he might end up playing more of a freelancing Caleb Downs position in the Penn State scheme, but I think he's going to probably settle in as more of the nickel corner. Looking at his tape from last year, I think that's where he projects the best. He's a guy that's got some special teams ability, both in terms of coverage, but also as a return man. And he's just very quick. He's a lot smaller than Caleb Downs. He's much more of a corner size guy, nickel size guy versus the way that like a Caleb Downs, which is a pure, he can play in the box, he can play deep type of safety. So Zion Tracy again is a guy that really was the fourth corner for Penn State. Absolutely is going to be a starter this year. Little uncertain what position he'll play, but I think he projects best as a NFL corner. So another guy that I'm really excited about is D'Angelo Pons. Now, this is a guy that's listed around, I think it's 5'9" and about like 170 or so. I think he's probably closer to 5'7" than 5'9". Hopefully he's over five, hopefully he's past in the 5'8" spectrum somewhere. I think he's a little bit bigger than 170. I think he could easily be like a 178, 180 by the time the NFL Combine shows up. Pons is a guy that was a freshman All-American at James Madison, but when the coaching staff left to Indiana, there was like 6 or 9 guys that went from James Madison to Indiana. And so last year was the first year he was playing consistent Big Ten competition. He was a second team All Big Ten selection. But he just has the size working against him. So I know I said earlier that it's not just a small guy that we're going to put in the corner, but he is truly a guy that probably lacks the size to be on the outside. Although that's definitely what he plays at Indiana. So he'll come up and he'll tackle you. He's built low to the ground, so he's really good change of direction abilities. But and he's a guy that may not be in this draft class. He is going to be a true junior, and if he ends up being 5'8.5" and 170 pounds, he might just say, I need to have that fourth year and build upon my tape. I'm really torn in terms of who I wanted to use as the fifth guy. I was reluctant to do this, but I think I'm going to go with Avion Terrell. Now, he's a guy that has a lot of first-round buzz, the younger brother of A.J. Terrell, the former Clemson, former or current Atlanta Falcons starting corner. So Avion is also a Clemson guy, so he's got a lot of good tape against a variety of different wide receivers. But he had I think it's a 90-91 run defense PFF grade in the 2024 season. He's not as big as his brother is. He's not as long as his brother is. And he really kind of reminds me of, let's see, he kind of reminds me of the Texas guy that got drafted by the Broncos. It's like I've completely forgotten every 2025 prospect.
Jahdae Barron. There we go.
Yeah, Jahdae Barron and stuff like that. He's got a lot of Jahdae Barron to his game. So some people might say, "Oh, you're moving in the slot." I think he can move. I think he can play outside. What are you doing moving in the slot? But I think he can do both. I think just like Jahdae Barron, he's got the potential to do both. But I think based on his size measurements, I think his speed is going to be very similar to Jahdae Barron. I think his run defense, his ability to tackle, his click and close. I think he'd be an excellent and potential first round pick as a slot corner if NFL teams saw him that way. Now, I will shout out one more guy that is actually he's probably going to make a lot of people's safety lists. But let's see. Where did I want to make sure I got his name correct? Yeah. So Jelon Kilgore was another guy that was a freshman All-American back in 2023 for South Carolina. Um, so he's got a lot of size to him. He's about 6'2", 220. And so he was forced to play in the nickel position, and he's got some bad tape here and there trying to guard the smaller slot guys. So I think this is a guy that some teams are just going to say, you're a slot. It's probably what he's going to do at South Carolina this year. But some guys might see him as the prototypical big nickel, a guy that's got a lot of experience playing in the slot. He just, he's a guy that can probably take on some of the tight end guys that sometimes are creating mismatches. But if you're trying to get him to guard the Josh Downses of the world, he's not able to hang with the smaller, quicker guys. So he had an up and down season when it comes to what games you're looking at. You can see some bad tape when he's got some bad mismatches, and he's got some good tape when it comes to coming up and being a run defender and taking on some guys of some size. Another guy that I think probably should deserve a little bit of a shout out is Rod Moore. Now, Rod Moore missed, I think, the entire 2024 season and about half of 2023. But Rod Moore from Michigan's a guy that, I may be getting the years wrong, but either 2021 or 2022, he was primarily a nickel. They moved him to safety. He had nickel safety or nickel corner size the last time we saw him on the field. It's hard to say what we're going to get from him, though, after he's missed about the last year and a half, though. He was a fast, he had, like 4.39 speed before a series of injuries. So I'm really interested to see how Michigan deploys him and if he comes back healthy this year. Now, that's all I got for the nickel and slot defenders this year. This 2024 cycle was the first year I really committed to separating them in my rankings from traditional outside corners and from some of the safeties. And so now when I do my scouting, I really got 6 positions I look at on the defense.
Yeah, and I think even as analysts, we have a little bit to learn, right? So here would be an example, like Dorian Strong. So when the initial scouting report came on him, a lot of people had him at slot. And Buffalo drafted him, Dorian Strong, out of Virginia Tech. And pretty much all of the PR within the Bills draft announcements is that he's going to try to play boundary. So it's, even as, like you said, you're looking, and obviously you can profile a guy based upon size. Smaller corners will shift into the slot. But there's even some bigger corners like Strong that sometimes we say he's slot, and then the NFL sees him as a boundary. So it's definitely a legit position. I mean, being a Bills fan, Taron Johnson is probably the best defensive player that we have, and he's a slot corner. And at one point, he was the highest paid slot corner in NFL history until a few contracts came in since then. So
it's all trivia. I didn't know that one.
Yeah. So Durst, you want to take a minute, introduce yourself to everybody, let them know how they can find all of your other content.
Yeah, I am Durst from, you can find me on Twitter at Durst NFL Draft. NFL all capitalized, and then the 2 D's are both capitalized. And so I've already got a small, about 150 player big board for the 2026 class put up. And this is my first season really trying to do numerical grading on all positions. So I've only got through about 20 players. I've done some numerical grading, but I'm going to try to continue that throughout the summer scouting as well as during the college season and leading up to the 2026 NFL draft.
So that's cool that you're doing numerical grading. I know that Newt is trying to do the same thing this year. Mm-hmm. And if you're new to the channel, one of the advantages of numerical grading is that it gives an analyst the opportunity to compare what was your grade for a 2024 player to a 2025 player. It helps to know, is this a stronger prospect or a stronger class at a given position relative to the grades that were given. You can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. The best thank you can give is to hit subscribe on YouTube. So if you like this content, we have daily draft content coming at you. So Durst and I have taken the time to record this. We are ironically recording this before I go on vacation tomorrow, but this will be broken up. You'll see 5 short podcasts replayed at about 10 p.m. at night. But every single day we're bringing you draft content. Right now we're building a big board, but you're going to start to see some other content where we're going to deep dive the draft classes at specific schools. So at the beginning of June, you're going to see the first 2 episodes, which will be Clemson and Notre Dame. So Clemson will be Monday night, Notre Dame will be Tuesday night, where we are literally going to deep dive, cover every Clemson player in the draft. There should be 3 or 4 podcasters kind of giving their takes. And we even have, for Indiana, we're going to have an Indiana podcaster come in. For Ohio State, there's going to be an Ohio State podcaster coming in. So we should have some fun prepping for the 2026 NFL draft. But for Durst, for myself, for the 79 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.